Well, my friends, welcome back. And it's been a little bit of time, has it not? April, I think it was my last video, give or take. And you probably wondered what happened. You may have wondered like this guy did. Am I dead? Have I gone to the other side? Or is something else going on? Well, let me explain, and I'm happy to be back. First and foremost, you're going to see regular content yet again here on the channel, so super looking forward to that, and very much looking forward to showing you the update on the $5 a day investment challenge. In fact, that comes a little bit later this week, so make sure you stay tuned. So here's what's going on, and here's what my realization is of how important it is to get invested, stay invested. This last couple months, really, the last 3-4 months has put my entire portfolio and my overall sense of investing mindset to the test. And I want to share that with you today. So here's what happened. Since January, we've been having a lot of issues with my mom, up and down, a lot of health issues, in and out of the hospital. Unfortunately, she passed away, and that was in April of 2025. So that's what happened. And that's why I went offline. Because you know what, at the end of the day, guys, family, yourself, and everything is much more important than working and all the other things in our life. We got to prioritize our families and ourselves ahead of all that other stuff. So now that I've had time to process from April to May to June, and now here it is in July of 2025, I'm happy to come back. I'm happy to share the updates, but also some wisdom of what I've learned, some of the bumps in the road along the way. So I also lost my father many, many years ago. So now I guess you could say I'm alone in the world, and I don't have my parents anymore. But because of the inspiration they instilled in me, I'm happy and very blessed with everything that has happened, from the work ethic to the investment mindset and all that. And I want to pay that legacy forward by doing these videos and continuing to come back on a more regular basis now that all that stuff's out of the way. But despite all that, you know what's interesting is during this whole entire time, especially in April, the stock market was on an absolute roller coaster. I mean, from what I understand, because remember, I was kind of plugged into, end of life stuff, and I don't recommend it, but unfortunately, we all go through it. But during that period of time, I'm focused on that, not really paying attention. So I'm only catching some headlines of, tariffs are now implemented. Now they're not. Now they are. Now they're up. Now they're down. And all the while, the stock market's going haywire. And then, of course, the whole Iran thing breaks out and the stock market's up and down again. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But I didn't do anything, of course, with the stock market, nor did I actually even look at it. What I've been doing, because I was so focused on that, is just continuing my consistent investments and not really paying attention to the stock market. Not that I would have done anything anyway, but I'll tell you that sense of stress relief of not looking at the portfolio is quite significant. And I want to share some numbers with you today. And I also want to reinforce the importance of making sure you do the same thing. The goal of financial independence, the secret. I mean, and let's be real, everybody talks about it. If you talk to any wealthy person, they talk about consistency. They talk about getting invested early, staying, all the boring stuff that we don't want to hear. We want to hear put your thing into this and all of a sudden you're going to make like millions of dollars. But it doesn't happen. And we know that. But we still try to do this anyway instead of just doing the boring method. But I'll tell you what's really cool about the boring method is what I'm about to share with you right now. So here's what happened. Now, this particular account is not my $5 a day account. This particular account that you're looking at right now is my overall, what I call my taxable account. This is my financial independence portfolio. But look what happens in March. So from March 1st to March 31st, you can see my taxable portfolio is down 5.97%. In fact, it's down more than the S&P 500 because I don't just invest in the S&P 500 in this particular account. So there's a little bit more volatility because it's a long-term play. But, that's a rough month because I lost well over $20,000. I mean, it was a lot of money that, and again, you don't lose the money unless you sell. So since I didn't sell, it's okay. But on paper, it was a rough month, and that was March. So I'm in and out, dealing with a lot of issues with my mother, dealing with the hospital stuff, not paying attention to the fact that my portfolio and the stock market is down over 5%. Then comes April, right? The big month of April, which was another bit of fun in the sun. But I'll tell you, March was, I think, worse, right? Yes, March was definitely worse than April. So April was a little bit easier. Here we are in the taxable account, only losing 0.38%, but still not really good. I mean, we're a couple $100 down, despite the fact that I invested a lot of money. I continued to invest. In fact, I invest consistently by the month and by the week in this particular account. So that's the goal, is to pay off your debt, become debt free, and then every single dime that you earn that you're not using for your emergency fund, that you're not using for life and having fun and enjoying time with your family, that extra cash when you're not in debt can be put into things like this so you can become massively wealthy. And that is, some future things we're going to be sharing on this channel about how you can break out of the rat trap and get yourself onto financial wealth from an average everyday guy like myself. If I can do it, you can do it too. I fully have trust in you. Because I hung on and I kept going, I want to show you June, because June is where things get a little bit interesting. You could, in any sense of the imagination, right? You could sit here and be like, oh, this is a lot. And I see a lot of investors do this, especially young investors that are watching the YouTube hype. They find that, oh my gosh, this isn't working, but they're recommending this new hype stock or meme stock. I'm going to cash out, take a loss, put my money into that. Well, then that starts going down and then you freak out and you take your money out of that. And all you're doing is you're eroding your money every time you do that, let alone the fact that you start with $1,000 and you keep doing that, you're going to end up with like $200 and think that the stock market is an absolute scam. But if you follow this boring, consistent method, look what happens here in June. Oh, things start coming back, right? And this may not happen this quickly. It might take a year or two, especially if we have like a downturn for a while. But here's a short little blip in the market, right? So here we're up 5.47%, actually beating the S&P 500 in June in my taxable account. And again, that's thanks to a lot of the riskier ETFs. I have very aggressive growth ETFs on top of general stock market ETFs. So I have a mix. I'll share that later in another video, but that is what helps me sometimes beat the S&P 500. Now, sometimes it turns on me like it did in April and March, but in any case, this was a good thing. If I would have sold out, I wouldn't have had the capital meaning money, to build this amount. Because think about this for a second. If you have 5.47% and your portfolio grows by that, if you have $5, it's going to grow by a couple pennies. If you have $200,000, it's going to grow by a lot. If you have $1 million, yeah, that's going to look pretty sweet. So all you have to do is take what your base portfolio is. So let's say at the start of the month, you have $1 million. Literally $1 million of base money invested, and it grows by 5.47%. That's an additional, just in 1 month, an additional growth of $54,700 in 1 month. Now, I know that the prior months you would have been negative, but that's pretty sweet to wake up, to come out of the hole of, what was I was going under a stressful period, right? Imagine coming out of that, whatever that may be in your life, and you look and you're like, my boss has been kind of painful and my job is kind of bad and this, but in my investment account, I made $54,000 in a singular month. And that's the point of investing early and often and aggressive and just dumping as much money as you possibly can. The more you build that up, the more it can work for you. So let's see what year to date looks like. So year to date, that goes from January 1st, 2025 up until the last figure, which would actually have been on July 3rd of 2025. But hey, 9.35%, that's beating the S&P 500. I'm feeling good about that. Again, if we plug in that same figure, if you had $1 million at the beginning of a year, Happy New Year, it's now 2025, you have $1 million and you grow by 9.35%. It's $93,000 you've made so far. And that is just the joy. And you don't have to make a lot of money to build to that figure, to that $1 million. So that is huge. Now, if we look at just the period of time between January and let's say May 31st, right? Kind of when things were rocky, right? Well, my portfolio only gave back 2.44% year to date to May 31st. But because we've had some good months, now we're up 9.35%. And remember, most important thing, the stock market over the last 100 years has grown on an average of 10% per year. Right now, it's keeping up. Hey, the rest of the year might be crap. I don't know, and I don't care. But the point of the video and the point of this and the point of coming back is during that period of time, I was not paying attention. I was not stressing out. I was not worried about the downturn. Just kept on investing and doing my thing. And I come back to a beautiful return year to date of 9.35%. So imagine what that looks like after 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I will tell you my $5 a day investment challenge. I started that back in January of 2022, invested $5 every day the stock market's opened. And now we're at 3.5 years, and that is significantly up comparatively to this. 9.35%, that only represents 7 months. But if you look at 3.5 years of ups and downs, it looks a little bit better. And you'll learn more about that this Wednesday. So The point of the story is, let's get back into the game, let's have some fun, let's stay consistent, and most importantly, comment down below with what you want to see next here on the channel so we can help make your life the perfect life. Until next time, check out this video next. We'll see you on the next video.